Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really fundamental to our world right now. How fear and hope, intertwine and really shape the global political landscape.
Yeah, it's a huge topic, and we'll be exploring these dynamics through an article called Fear versus Hope, Navigating Today's Political Landscape.
Right. By Allison Rowe 569 at gmail.com from April 2025.
Exactly.
And for you, the learner, our goal in this deep dive is, well, to cut through some of the noise, to help understand the core ways these really powerful emotions drive political chat and events.
Think of it like an express route, maybe, a shortcut to grasping these crucial underlying forces.
Yeah, exactly. The article jumps right in, highlighting the rise of populism and nationalism worldwide. You see it everywhere.
And it's not happening in a vacuum, right? The article points out these trends are really influenced by widening socioeconomic gaps,
Big factor.
the fast pace of technology, and just how polarized public opinion has become.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the author uses specific moments, historical examples, to show these shifts in how people vote.
Right. Things like the Brexit referendum and the 2020 U.S. presidential election, they really underscore this interplay of fear and hope.
Clear examples.
Yeah.
But it's not all, doom and gloom. The article also stresses the power of hope.
The counterforce.
Exactly. We see it in global movements pushing for climate action or social equality. That's a vital part of the story.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is the role of technology here. It's sort of ambiguous.
How so?
Well, social media, it's obviously a massive channel for spreading fear-based stuff like misinformation.
Oh, yeah. Scary fast sometimes.
But at the same time, it's also a place where communities can gather around hopeful ideas and organize.
So it cuts both ways.
Definitely.
Okay, so understanding this constant push and pull between fear and hope, like this article lays out, seems pretty essential if you want to be, informed and engaged.
Absolutely.
All right, let's dig into fear first. How exactly is it used as a political tool, according to the article?
Well, the article makes a strong case that fear is, frankly, a very effective instrument politically. Leaders, political actors, they often use it deliberately to consolidate power, sway opinion, and, influence how people vote.
By tapping into our anxieties.
Exactly. Tap into those basic human worries, and you can mobilize support pretty effectively.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When people feel insecure, they look for safety, for reassurance.
Right. And the article gets into the psychology of it, saying fear can come from real concerns, job insecurity, social changes, threats to national security.
Very real things.
And the article gives that concrete example. During elections, you often see candidates hammering on about crime rates or immigration.
Yeah, you do.
The goal often is to stir up that apprehension.
And then position themselves as the one with the answers. The protector.
Precisely. Things are scary, but vote for me, I'll fix it.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting for me. The article says this fear can actually mess with our ability to think clearly, rationally.
That's a key point. When we're scared, that primal self-preservation instinct can kind of override careful thinking about complex policies.
Like a fight or flight response?
Sort of, yeah. The article suggests as it makes us lean towards simpler solutions, maybe less willing to wrestle with nuance.
And that simplification, the article argues, feeds into political polarization, makes it easier to see the other side as a threat.
Absolutely. When you're anxious, it's easier to demonize opponents.
And the long-term consequences of politics, just soaked in fear.
They're significant. The article really flags the potential for more mistrust in society, deeper divisions, and maybe even a weakening of democratic foundations.
That's a worrying picture. Okay, so let's flip the coin. What about hope? How does that work as a counterbalance?
Hope, as the article frames it, is that crucial counterweight. History shows us time and again, hope can fuel really profound, transformative change.
It inspires action, even against tough odds.
Exactly. It gives people a sense of agency, that feeling you can make a difference, which is the opposite of the powerlessness fear often brings.
Right. Does the article give examples?
Oh, yeah. The big one cited is the American Civil Rights Movement in the 60s.
Classic example.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. It's the perfect illustration of how a hopeful vision can unite people and mobilize them.
Absolutely. Despite all the fear and injustice they faced, that movement was driven by aspiration. What about hope on a smaller scale? Local level.
The article touches on that too, how hope shows up in grassroots efforts, community initiatives.
Right.
Places where there's a sense of hope often see much higher civic engagement. When local leaders push for positive goals, people trust more, they get involved voting, volunteering.
It pulls people together, whereas fear can isolate them.
Precisely. Hope builds collaboration for a better future. So the article really positions hope, especially when it's tied to community and a positive vision, as a real driver of progress and resilience.
And unity, it sounds like.
And unity, definitely.
Okay, so we've looked at fear, we've looked at hope.
Hmm.
How do they actually interact? The article says it's complex.
Yeah, it's not just that they're opposites. The relationship is much more tangled, especially, it says, in times of uncertainty.
Like now.
Like now, yeah. Fear and hope can actually coexist. They can even amplify each other.
How does that work?
Well, think about it. You might feel really worried about the way things are, but at the same time, hold on to a strong hope for how things could be, like deep concern about the climate crisis, but still hoping for innovation and change.
Okay, I see that. And the article mentions how a fearful population might be drawn to authoritarian figures.
Right, seeking strong leadership in uncertain times.
But that same fear might also push people towards finding hope in social movements or leaders who preach unity.
Exactly. It's a really dynamic tension. People can react in very different ways.
And political campaigns know this. They use both.
Oh, absolutely. The article is clear on that. Campaigns strategically play on both fears, jobs, security, health scares, and hopes. Vote for us for a brighter future. It's all about mobilizing voters.
So being aware of that tactic, recognizing when your fears or hopes are being targeted, is key to making informed choices.
Critical thinking 101, really, recognizing that interplay.
Okay, to make this even clearer, the article looks at some recent events as case studies.
Yeah, some really good ones.
First up, the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Fear was a big player there, right?
Right.
Worries about instability, the economy.
Undeniably. Lots of anxiety driving decisions for many voters.
But at the same time, there was a huge wave of hope from voters wanting policy changes, maybe into perceived norms.
A massive surge of hope, yeah. And the article points out how the aftermath, everything that followed, really showed that tension between the two. Fear and hope clashing.
Okay. Then there are the protests in Belarus after their 2020 election. That seems driven mostly by fear of the regime.
On the surface, yes. Fear of oppression, fear of speaking out. Very real fear.
But underneath,
the article argues, was this powerful desire for democracy, a hope for real change, driven by people getting involved, taking action together.
So even in a situation dominated by fear, hope was still a major motivator.
A crucial driving force, yeah.
And the last case study is the global response to climate change. This one really shows the interaction.
It does. The increasing natural disasters, they definitely instill fear about the planet's future. You can't ignore it.
Right.
But then you have movements like Fridays for Future, fundamentally fueled by hope, demanding action. It shows hope rising directly in response to those scary environmental narratives.
So yeah, across elections, protests, global issues, fear and hope are just completely intertwined in shaping events and how we talk about them.
Deeply interwoven.
Okay, let's talk about the shapers of those narratives. The media. How does the article see their role?
It stresses just how critical media, both traditional news and social media, are in this whole dynamic. They're powerful tools for spreading stories that trigger either fear or hope. They frame things for us.
And the article mentions sensationalism, how news coverage can amplify fears.
Yeah, focusing on things like immigration crises or terrorism scares or economic downturns. It can create this background hum of insecurity. Headlines designed to grab you often play on fear.
But media can also inspire hope.
Definitely. By covering positive stories, community resilience, solutions that are working, that can be really empowering for people.
And social media adds another layer of complexity.
Oh, yeah. Information, true or false, spreads like wildfire. That can amplify both fear and hope incredibly quickly.
And the algorithms. The article suggests they might favor the fear stuff. The sensational.
That's a concern raised, yeah. That fear-based content might get more engagement, so it gets pushed more. Something to be really aware of as a consumer of media.
But it's not all bad, right? Social media connects people too.
Absolutely. It's vital for connecting people with shared hopes, for organizing positive action. It really is a double-edged sword.
So the article puts some responsibility on journalists, content creators.
How they frame issues matters immensely. The article suggests that a more balanced, nuanced approach could really enrich public understanding and maybe strengthen democracy.
Given how much fear-inducing stuff is out there, what does the article suggest for coping, for managing those feelings?
It offers some practical psychological strategies. One is mindfulness.
Okay, like meditation.
Yeah, or focused breathing, even journaling. The idea is to become aware of your thoughts and emotions, like fear, without getting swept away by them, observing them rather than being consumed.
Creating a bit of distance, maybe?
Exactly. Gaining perspective. Another big one is community engagement.
Getting involved locally?
Yes. Joining groups, volunteering, connecting with people who share your values, it builds belonging purpose. Can actually turn that feeling of fear into motivation for action with others.
Right. Working together towards something positive definitely makes you feel less powerless.
Totally. And the third strategy mentioned is advocacy.
Speaking out.
Yeah. Voicing your opinion constructively, participating in peaceful actions, contacting officials. It's about channeling that fear energy into positive steps. It builds resilience, that feeling that you can make a difference.
So mindfulness, community connection, advocacy, tangible things people can do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about actively nurturing hope? How can we do that in politics and activism?
The article really emphasizes that hope isn't just, wishful thinking. It's something you actively cultivate through engagement. It shapes values, fosters positivity.
And it loops back to those examples like the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Fridays for Future.
Exactly. They show how hope-driven activism really can lead to massive change.
So how do we nurture it? What are the strategies?
The article suggests things like really fostering inclusivity in movements, making sure diverse voices are heard.
Creating spaces for dialogue?
Yes, dialogue, collaboration, forums, events where people can connect. Volunteering is key again. And crucially,
Yes.
prioritizing mental and emotional self-care. Burnout is real in activism. Sustaining hope requires sustaining yourself.
That's a really important point. You need resilience for the long haul.
Absolutely. By actively working to nurture hope, the argument goes, we can boost participation and help create a political climate where change feels more possible, achievable even.
Wow. This has been a really insightful deep dive into this whole fear versus hope dynamic in politics today.
It's definitely complex terrain.
And it's totally understandable, as the article notes, to feel overwhelmed sometimes.
Yeah.
With the negative news, the anxieties about the economy, social divisions, global stuff.
It's a lot, but it's so important to remember what the article stresses. Hope is that engine. For progress, for resilience, for collaboration.
It's what drives us to aim for something better, even when things look tough.
Exactly.
And achieving that balance, the article talks about acknowledging the fears, but actively nurturing hope that takes conscious effort, doesn't it?
It really does. Being mindful of our own reactions, actively looking for ways to bridge divides, encourage understanding.
Yeah, moving beyond just reacting.
Right. So the challenge for you, the learner, is really to stay informed, get involved in your communities in ways that feel right for you, and find ways to channel any fear into constructive action while really holding on to and cultivating that hopeful outlook.
That's the work. And maybe just a final thought for you to take away from this.
Yeah.
Think about your own life, your own conversations, your sphere of influence. How can you personally contribute to fostering more hope-centered discussions and actions? How can you consciously shift away from just reacting to fear and instead actively plant seeds of hope?
That's a powerful question to reflect on.
Definitely something to explore. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.